So I'm sure many of you know I'm a big fan of Tom Ford, and he's been dethroned when it comes to his fragrance. And the fragrance that this fragrance I'm about to talk to smells like, this one's just better. If you want to know about the fragrance that murders Tuscan leather, in my personal opinion, stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? My name is Joshua, and this is our channel, Scentsense. Today we'll be talking about a fragrance from a house called ARGOS. ARGOS is a fragrance house that bases their fragrances off of mythology. I get kind of geeked out when I hear about fragrance houses, especially niche and indie fragrance houses, that have a story to tell. But if you know me, especially if you know me personally, I love Greek mythology, and I love mythology in general. From stories of Hercules and Zeus and Poseidon and Mercury and all of these guys from back in the day that just kind of hyped everybody and made the Colosseum shake. These are fragrances that I love that come from the house of ARGOS that definitely bring those stories to life. Today we'll be talking about a fragrance that I did a first impression with, and I've had the time to really wear this around the house, really experience it, wear it outside in the sun, wear it outside in the shade in the cool weather, and just kind of get an idea of, man, how does this thing work? What does it do? How does it grow? How does it change? What is this fragrance? The fragrance we're going to be talking about from the house of ARGOS is Bacio Immortale. So their box is pretty legit. As you see, you have the lovely Psyche here and Cupid, a love story forged in the tests of time. And as you can see right here, he's granting her the kiss of immortality, which is where you get the name Immortale. It has a really beautiful art. It's got, clouds on the side and the top. It's got that basic information that really... But let's get to the box that's within the box. This beautiful box has this faux blue leather-like appeal to it. It's got the name embossed in silver, the brand at the top with the eye. It's got this magnetic, flap. That's how it opens. And it opens up and it has like the sunk-in coffin effect that a lot of higher-end fragrances have, and it fits very snugly. As you can see, it's not gonna fall out here, but I'm gonna go ahead and take it out anyway. Before we get to this bad boy, let's just look at this. It's got the printing on the inside. It's got a story to tell you. Kind of tells you the idea behind the fragrance. If you want to learn more about that story, you can go ahead and watch my first impressions where I break that down. I'm not going to waste your time here. I really want to spend a lot more time on this. So you know what? Let's just get past that. So before we go ahead and dive into this fragrance, let's just discuss the notes, put them out there so you can get an idea of what I'm painting. In the top notes, you're gonna get bergamot, lemon, pepper, and raspberry. In the mid notes, you're gonna get some more pepper in the form of pink peppercorn. You're also gonna get some leather, some violet, and some jasmine. And in the base, you're gonna get leather again, which rears its head again, some oud, some musk, some birch, and vanilla. So now that you know the notes and you've already seen the prelude, the introduction, this, in my opinion, is a Tuscan leather murderer, killer, assassinator, whatever you want to call it. This does everything right for me that Tuscan leather did wrong. I know you're asking me what exactly do I mean by that. And for me, Tuscan leather got a little too dirty, got a little too dry for me. It got a little too much more on the leather side. And leather's not a bad note, but I find that when you soften it, it really brings out the specialness of leather. It makes it smell a lot more wearable and less like the inside of a BMW. I'm sure you heard raspberry and I'm sure you heard leather, and that immediately, in my opinion, brings up Tuscan leather. And what this does that Tuscan leather doesn't do is it makes it bright and super juicy and fruity, and it still keeps that leather and it keeps it prominent to where you're not thinking this is just a super sweet fragrance. This is something that melds the worlds of masculine and feminine and does it very, very well. And I think it's very cool that you have Psyche and Cupid together in this fragrance because you get that kind of vibe. And Cupid is actually known as Eros in another form of mythology, which is kind of cool because when you think of Versace Eros, you think of sweet and minty, but you get that sweetness and that lovey-dovey kind of vibe when it comes to that fragrance. And that's where I think they got the name for that. But what I get from this is this leather accord that just gives you this masculinity and this oud and this birch that gives it this earthiness and this strength. But then you get the sweetness, which plays such a strong role, that vanilla, and then you have those florals that work really well together, but raspberry is really shining bright in this fragrance, and that's what makes this one so good. Before I go further in the fragrance, I'd really like to discuss the bottle. So when I saw a live of Justin Copeland talking about these bottles and Argos showing them on their website, I thought, man, that looks tacky. But when you hold it in hand and you see it in person and you feel the weight and you see the exquisiteness of the presentation, you really quickly realize it's not nearly what you think it might be. To be honest, at first I thought this was gonna be a cheap reach at what like a high-end Versace fragrance would look like. You know, the Greek pillar style, the heavy thick glass with the metal on the front. I thought this was gonna be some kind of like sticker that's like not raised, just flat. I thought the cap was gonna be super light. I thought the bottle was gonna be But I've gotta tell you, this thing right here, you could probably dislodge someone's retina. You probably could like throw this through one of those glass doors, the fire hydrants behind. It says break in case of emergency. You would just bow. You might puncture the fire hydrant. But at the end of the day, this thing right here is just a great quality bottle. You got Argos here stamped or embossed. It's raised right here on the front. It has Argos again on the cap, which I think is really cool. It's got the logo of the company on the cap, which is also a thing that you see a lot of times in, you know, fragrance brands. But the coolest part is this metal placard that's on the front. And as you can see through the bottle, it's not like, you know, stuck on the edge. It's kind of in an indentation in the glass. And it's super nice, hard metal. I mean, it's like, I don't know if you can hear that. I mean, it is in there, and it's got the gold inlay of the color with the silver accent. And then it says Bacio Immortale right here on like one of those scrolls, which is a cool attention to detail. And of course, you've got Psyche and Cupid right here on the front, which I have to say, I'm actually impressed. At first, I was hesitant. You know, I've even mentioned it with a friend of mine. We were discussing it, and I was like, dude, I think he really messed up with these bottles. But like I said, holding it in hand, feeling the weight of the bottle, seeing it in person, and then seeing it on camera up close, it's a really nice bottle. So getting back to the fragrance, what do I get from this fragrance? As I said before, I get Tuscan leather done better. It's not often that a fragrance brand makes a fragrance that smells close to another fragrance and it isn't just a clone copy or a crappy watered down version. You know, you also get Spirito Fiorentino from Tiziana Terenzi, which is often compared to Baccarat Rouge 540, but in my opinion, Spirito Fiorentino is a better fragrance. It's more masculine, it's better balanced, it's more leaning towards a man, and it's easier for a man to wear. Having said that, I get the same thing with this one. This is Tuscan leather done sweeter. This one's done more seductive. This is not as harsh and dirty and dry of a leather. This is a smooth, creamy, sexy leather. This definitely speaks to the story of love between these two. The soft feminine with the masculine in it, it definitely is balanced really, really well. And it's definitely a love story in fragrance. Having said that, my wife hates leather. I have ombre leather. I have this. I have lots of other fragrances like this. African leather. She just hates leather. This one for me, though, I think is super sexy. And I've been told by other people when it came to Tuscan leather that they thought it was a sexy fragrance. And I can tell you that this one amps up the sexiness. When do I think you should wear this fragrance? I think this would be a perfect fragrance for the fall time and the winter time, but I don't think you have to hold off on buying this fragrance now. I think this would be perfect for date nights. This would be perfect for the 65 to 70 degree weather in the nighttime, dressed up real nice. You're trying to get some in the sheets action. This would be an in the sheets fragrance. This is gonna work. I'm telling you, you're gonna smell like $1 million. You're gonna smell like you got a lot more money than you really do. You might be driving a Mazda Miata, but you Ubered because you wanted to be responsible, and you show up and she's thinking, he must drive like an Audi or something. But in all actuality, you've got a Yaris at home. It's a stick shift and you're trying to get good MPG. Bacio Immortale is something that you should grab if you smelled Tuscan leather, you've owned Tuscan leather, and you just want something better, and it's actually cheaper. I'll go ahead and put the price of the fragrance on the screen right now. And yes, I know what you're thinking. It's pretty high. But at the end of the day, it's still cheaper for the same amount of mLs as you would get from Tom Ford's Tuscan leather. It's a lot cheaper, and the quality is there. Now, I don't want to hear anybody say, oh, well, I can go on a Facebook fragrance group and there's this one dude who at one time in the past 3 years sold Tuscan leather at a supreme discount because he didn't know what he had and it was cheaper than that. So there, boom, Tuscan leather is cheaper. That's dumb. The best way to describe it or compare them is MSRP. What would you pay for Tom Ford's Tuscan leather if you went into Neiman's or you went into Nordstrom's or you went into any store that might sell it? And whatever that price is, I guarantee you it'll be more than this. On top of that, I also think the bottle is of a higher quality. You're getting a whole experience that's a little bit better than Tom Ford's, and that's just a personal opinion. When it comes to longevity, performance, sillage, all across the board, check, check, check. This thing lasted on my skin till the next morning. I woke up and I could still smell it. My wife smelled it and she's like, you still have that on? Why did you put more on? And I definitely didn't put more on. It just smelled that good, and she could definitely smell it from across the room and was kind of confused that it was still emanating from my skin. As far as sillage, it fills up a room. I've sprayed I don't know how many fragrances in this room today while I filmed these videos, so that should tell you, if I can smell this one above the whole crowd and noise, it definitely is gonna work if you're wearing it in a room with a lot of other people who, of course, will be wearing fragrance. The ultimate question is, would I buy this? Undoubtedly, yes, because I had been holding off on buying Tuscan leather. I own Oud Wood, Sole di Positano, I own Plum Japonais, Costa Azzurra Aqua. I own many of the private label line fragrances from Tom Ford, but I haven't pulled the trigger on Tuscan leather because I just feel like it's a little too dirty. This does everything that fragrance does, but just does it better. There's not a single thing that Tom Ford Tuscan leather does better than this. So yes, undoubtedly, I would buy this. And as always, and most importantly, fragrance fam, I'll smell each and every one of you later. Peace.